But who better than me?
Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, an associate, a relative, anyone in between. I appreciate it all. There was a few things that happened towards the back end of this week that I wanted to talk about, and seeing as I haven't done it in the previous video and I thought it was worthy to talk about outside of the weekend wrap that just came out earlier on today, I thought let me get to it in another episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so in the previous episode I spoke about Joyce and Joseph Parker, their fight kind of being announced. And subsequent to that, they had a press conference on, I believe it was Thursday. It was Wednesday or Thursday. It was one of those 2 days. Anyway, it was never going to be like the most riveting press conference. Purely because I always used to think that Joyce was like a bit slow in the head as such. Like one of those guys that's intelligent but slow, if you know what I mean. However, that's not actually the case, because I've actually seen him in other circumstances before where he doesn't pause for like 10 seconds before answering a question, where things just kind of flow off the top of the head. And I was previously told actually one of the reasons why he kind of does sort of speak in that very stuttering, stagnant pattern is because he's kind of thinking what he's gonna say so that he doesn't get misconstrued, you know, doesn't sort of get clipped up. He doesn't want to say the wrong thing, so it's almost like he's caught in two minds as to what to say. But I've seen him in instances where he's literally just let the words flow and it, you know, it comes out kind of cool and clear. Joseph Parker, on the other hand, is a very kind of nice guy. He's always been like a gentleman in the sport. He's very much like the Chris Billam-Smith of New Zealand. You know, just a nice guy. Like, he's the kind of guy you want to have around, good energy. You don't particularly think you're going to be in any danger around him. But then in the ring, it's a little bit different, especially under Andy Lee. Now, the press conference, what was actually kind of interesting about it was the fact that Frank Warren and Ben Shalom were kind of more at the forefront. Now, Frank basically sunned Ben pretty much throughout, saying, well, look, you weren't even involved in the original negotiations. I don't know why you're up here trying to talk about how you had his best interests at heart, blah, blah, blah. And Frank even said towards the end of it that Joseph Parker's actually got a worse deal now than he did the first time that they had agreed the deal. But Joe was kind of going at Frank a bit as well, saying, well, look, like, you tried to change the terms. You and your team gave me a handshake and agreed £1.5 million, then came back to me and said, oh, well, that's not actually the case, we can't do that, and then tried to make me a B-side on a free fight deal, and just to make me fight opponent. I didn't want to be an opponent. I wanted someone that's going to look after me, hence why I went to Ben Shalom and Boxer. Frank tried to do a misdirect with a text that Joe sent, which to me kind of landed a bit deftly, because the text said, oh, the deal took a long time, so now I found something else. That doesn't say that the deal was done. It says that it took a long time, but Frank tried to act as if, yeah, it was done, and then you pulled out and reneged on it. Either way, it was, like I said, it was a bit of a strange one, but it was entertaining for all the wrong reasons, especially when Joseph Parker was saying, you know, he's gonna sort of punch Joyce all around the ring, and Joyce was like, oh, what, you're gonna give me a little tickle, basically insinuating he doesn't have any power. Now, the previous Parker probably, you know, would have had the fast hands, would have just tried to hit a move and stay on the outside. But this new Parker, you know, he's fighting a bit more at his natural size, you know, much thicker neck and sort of shoulders. Seems to be punching a bit straighter with Andy Lee. He's got a bit of the Kronk style in him. So I actually think it's going to be a great fight. The fact it's pay-per-view, look, I could talk about that all day. I think everyone admits it's not a pay-per-view fight. And it's funny because obviously Frank Warren, you know, slated, what was it, AJ and Dillian White, saying that should never be pay-per-view. He's never even got a title on the line, rare. Now he's doing a pay-per-view for something that has even less of a title, because at least that was the British Championship. Like, this has literally nothing on the line except, you know, it's an eliminator. It's not even a final eliminator. It doesn't mean that you're going to guarantee a shot at a champion afterwards. But you know, it is what it is. It's a good fight, and but yeah, like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And contrary to popular opinion, at this point in the juncture, I've actually got Joseph Parker winning this fight. I think stylistically he's all wrong for Joyce, and he's definitely going to have probably the best, either the best punching power or the best punch delivery that Joyce has had to deal with. And if he comes in sort of anything like how Bryant Jennings did, it'll be a long night. But that's something I can kind of get into later on in the day. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, roll on the 24th of September. I've already got my accommodation sorted up in Manny, and yeah, it should be a good weekend. Okay, so following on from the whole fiasco with Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman Jr. Rahman Jr. decided to do a mock weigh-in on Friday to prove that he could make the 205 weight and that it wasn't his fault the fight was stopped and whatnot, and he shouldn't have been called off. Now, having heard what a few people have said about this, I also have to agree that the optics look terrible on both sides. First things first, Hasim Rahman blew the weight. He was already given an extra £5 by the New York State Athletic Commission to make it a bout of 205, and he came in at 206.6 butt naked, took off the boxers and everything, and he still came in at 206.06. So unless he decided to maybe slow down from what he was doing to cut weight because the fight got called off, and then decided, actually no, let me show that I can actually still do this. It's bad optics on his side, because it means that when it came to that day in the first place, he was going to blow the weight. He wasn't going to make the weight that was contracted, and was either going to have to pay a penalty, or the fight was going to get called off because he came in overweight anyway. The only way that possibly could have been avoided is, I think the second day he would have not been allowed to weigh more than 214 pounds in the morning, and then can weigh whatever he wants after that. So if he comes in at like 206, maybe he gets fined whatever the purse is, and then the following day, if he still comes in under 214, then he can, you know, he can have the fight and whatnot, and then obviously do what he's doing in that sense. Now maybe that was the plan, but both him and Stephen Espinosa was on Twitter, where he basically said, look, I came in at 206, you could have just fined me and I would have been, you know, the fight still could have happened, so it wasn't my fault. And Stephen Espinosa said, well no, that was only when the bout was at 200, and as soon as it went to 205, those initial terms in the contract got taken out. That to me sounds like a very bad contract. It all seems very, very messy. Overall, I maintain that while Rahman was unprofessional to sign a contract knowing he couldn't make that weight, even if he was planning on taking the penalties or whatever, it was down to Jake Paul and Stephen Espinosa why the fight got called off, which does lead me to believe that it was due to either ticket sales or attention or traction. It just wasn't popping, and his next fight is probably going to be against someone with a name that has a status and a name value associated to it, because obviously he's been shouldering the burden of these pay-per-views as of late, and they ain't been doing too well. The Tommy Fury ship seems to have sunk and died a horrible death at this point, and I don't think Hasim Rahman's going to get the chance to repeat on this. And if it does, they might even say, well look, give me 8 weeks next time instead of 4, and I'll make the weight and then I'll still beat you up. So speaking of which, he released the sparring footage of Jake running away from him in the ring, so that was funny, what he was talking about from the press conference. So maybe it was just a case of Jake was just a bit, you know, it wasn't doing too well, and he was a bit worried that he was going to get punched up. But you know, we'll never know at this point. But yeah, it was bad on both sides, but it was also a funny situation to watch. So I definitely wanted to just touch on it just for the sake of it. Speaking of Jake Paul, he was recently in a Twitter skirmish with KSI, whereby because Alex Wasabi has pulled out of the fight with KSI, which is supposed to be on the 27th of August, I think, at the O2 Arena. He was basically saying, well, look, you can come fight me, but you gotta fight me 100 like for free, and I will take all the revenue. You won't get anything from it, but if you want to fight, you can fight. Jake Paul said, show me the contract, I will sign it. I don't need to make money from this, I want to fight. And I think ultimately he's still kind of got it in his head that he wants to avenge the loss that Logan got against KSI. When was that? Back in 2019. Personally, I still think Logan won that fight, but that's my opinion. Anyway, it then comes to light that Alex Wasabi, who apparently has suffered a concussion as to why he's been taken out of that fight, is actually managed or advised by Jake Paul. So then a lot of people started basically theorizing, oh, so Jake Paul's fight gets called off. All of a sudden now Alex Wasabi can't fight. Bring Jake Paul in, he gets to make money, or he gets to have the big pay-per-view that he was after. He gets to avenge the loss of his brother, and he gets to beat the crap out of KSI. Because I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Jake Paul batters KSI. Like, KSI boxing wise is horrid. Like, Logan Paul was much better than him as a, you know, technically and everything else. His gas tank was horrendous. Well, Jake seems to have a better gas tank than Logan. He seems to be a lot more conditioned towards boxing. He's definitely got the better skills of the two. But so everyone theorized that was the what was maybe going to be the plan moving forward, and it was a good theory, to be honest. But now we've seen that KSI is actually going to be fighting Schwarms instead. For those of you who may not know who Schwarms is, he's a UK rap artist or grime artist or urban artist, you know, whatever you guys call it. I'm not sure exactly what genre we would classify it as, to be honest. I don't really listen to him, but obviously I've heard a couple of his tunes. So yeah, any of the Americans watching, that's who he is, just in case y'all was wondering. I mean, to be honest, it's still going to be sold out at the O2 off the strength of KSI as well. So whoever's going to be on the undercard will be, you know, there will probably be other influencers and stuff. I know Ade's running that show, so I'm actually going to be keen to see how he does. If I've got some spare change, I might purchase it just to kind of support him. I probably won't, but yeah. Yeah, so that puts paid to the rumors, I guess, that Jake was, you know, he pulled out of one fight to basically get a better deal in the UK. But I guess what this also means is Schwarms better hope that he can fight, because if he gets thumped up by KSI, you can't ever now have any bad man talk in your tunes. Because I mean, look, I'm not saying JJ is a punk or nothing, but yeah, like unless literally every bar you're gonna talk is about wetting man up with the, you know, with the, I can't really, yeah, okay, let me leave that alone. But yeah, it doesn't look good for you being like, you know, one of them guys if you're getting punched up in front of everyone on well, the streaming sites, so live TV or live in person, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, he better hope that he's got some skills. But yeah, that should be a whole interesting saga. We'll see what kind of happens with that moving forward. And just to finish things off, Deontay Wilder released a picture with Michael Hunter earlier on this week, showing that he's basically been back in the gym. Apparently, I think he's working out in Las Vegas at the moment. And what most people have noticed is that he now has lost a lot of body mass. If you remember what he looked like in the last Tyson Fury fight, and even to a degree the second one, he was a bit more sort of stocky and thicker around sort of the shoulders, biceps and the neck. He looks very, very slim. Obviously he's always had the skinny legs, so people notice the legs and they make fun of that. But his frame, like he looks like he's lost about 20 to 25 pounds of muscle. I mean, he's not looking defined or anything like that, but he's just looking slim, slender. I mean, yeah, I guess he looks more like how he used to look. I mean, he's at the start of camp, so it's not like, you know, he's going to be in the best of his conditions, you know, the most ripped he can be, you know, because you're hitting the weights and everything and doing all the resistance training, so the abs and that ain't going to be popping, the chest ain't going to be fully expanded and whatnot. So I kind of get that, but the weight loss is very noticeable. And I guess if he decides that, you know what, that's kind of the weight he's comfortable to fight at moving forward, then I can't really complain, because that's always been his most effective weight, sort of those mid 210s, you know, to low 220s. He's always sort of kind of been his best in and around there, between 212 and 222 has always kind of been his range. There's been talks of Robert Helenius and Ali Erendemirezyan as being his opponents coming back. So we'll see if that's the case. Both of those are pretty good opponents for him. Helenius hits like a truck, so that's going to be a difficult one. He's a lot quicker than Helenius, so if he can get his work off and stick behind his jab and move and maybe catch Helenius from different angles, he can definitely take him out, because I mean, he's been knocked out by Gerald Washington, who's nothing special. But Ali Erendemirezyan as an actual opponent would probably be a better style matchup for him, even though he's gonna have to sort of punch down, which isn't something that tall fighters do that particularly well. Demirezyan doesn't roll under punches, he doesn't move his head that much, he just uses his arms, he blocks a lot on the gloves and does a lot of either catch counter or tries to punch in between your punches. But Wilder has got much longer arms than him, so if he lets a shot off, unless Demirezyan is able to slip it and get on the inside, which is not the quickest of doing, that's not really going to be a strategy for him to try and punch with Wilder in that sense. But either of those opponents would be, you know, they would be good opponents, to be totally honest. I would much rather see the Derek Chisora fight, seeing as Derek deserves that. He wants that fight. I think he deserves it for his legacy, and just to say that he's fought every single person of note from the old era to the new era, win, lose or draw. I reckon he can still put up a good performance there. But any three of those as a comeback opponent for Deontay Wilder would be cool. But the fact that he is sort of on the way back is, you know, I can't really complain. But yeah, like the size difference is noticeable, and if he stays there, it'll be interesting to see what he kind of does moving forward. I mean, personally, I wouldn't mind seeing him just decide to rule, so to speak, over the Bridgerweight division, just fight Oscar Rivas in his comeback fight. I'm sure Mauricio Suleiman will give him a #1 ranking at heavyweight and Bridgerweight at the exact same time, and he can be a Bridgerweight champion, and he can say he was a 2-weight world champion, and he can put that on his legacy. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that moving forward. Alright, so I'm going to leave that there. It's not the first time I've done 2 videos in one day, but it very much is a rarity, so yeah, don't get used to it. Maybe when I get a proper camera and other stuff in place, I might be able to churn out 1, 2 or 3, especially over the weekends. But this time I had some time, I wasn't doing much, and I felt like I needed to touch on a few subjects before the next week starts, because there's always a madness kicking off on a Monday and a Tuesday, and then this stuff becomes old news. So yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching. As always, I appreciate every view and every comment that you leave, and I do respond to almost all of them when I get the chance, so please continue to do so. But for right now, as I said, thanks for watching, and Hardcore Casual out.